My family disowned me, and a year later they reached out, but it was just for money. I don't know when it happened, when everything shifted, when the family I once knew and loved turned into a stranger's shadow. But I do remember the last time I saw them. It was a cold day, and I was standing in the doorway, the weight of the world pressing against me, my hands trembling as I tried to keep my composure. My parents, my siblings, all of them, standing there, cutting me out, turning their backs without even an ounce of remorse. It felt like a bad dream, one that I couldn't wake up from. I remember thinking, how did we get here? How did I go from being a part of this family to standing outside it, unwanted and unneeded? My name is Taylor, and I used to be the glue that held everything together. I was the one who showed up when times were tough, who listened when no one else would. I spent my entire life caring for my family. If they needed something, I was there. Financially, emotionally, physically. I was the support system they could always count on. I never questioned it. I never thought twice about helping them, no matter what it cost me. But then, that argument changed everything. It wasn't even about anything important. It was the kind of argument that starts over something small, something silly, but it escalated, like a match to gasoline, igniting years of built-up frustration, resentment, and old grudges that had been buried under the surface. I don't remember exactly how it started, but I remember the anger in their voices. The accusations, the blame. It was like a storm had ripped through, and by the end of it, I found myself standing there, speechless, wondering what had just happened. "You're not part of this family anymore," my father said, his voice cold and final. His words cut deeper than I ever thought possible. "We don't need you." My mother didn't say a word. She just turned away, walking out of the room as if I had never existed. And my siblings? They just stood there, silent, avoiding eye contact. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me, and I was falling into an abyss that I couldn't escape. For the next few weeks, I didn't hear a single word from them. No calls, no texts, no visits. I tried to reach out, tried to explain myself, but every attempt was met with silence. The rejection was suffocating, like a weight I couldn't escape. How could they do this to me? After everything I had done for them, after all the years I had given them my love and support, how could they just turn their backs and leave me in the dark? The silence grew louder with each passing day. I could feel my heart breaking, and I didn't know how to fix it. I was lost, torn between the desire to make things right and the crushing reality that they no longer wanted me in their lives. But time, as it does, moved on. And slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. Not just my life, but myself. I found solace in the company of friends, people who weren't blood, but who showed me that family wasn't always about shared genetics. These people cared for me, listened to me, and didn't judge me for things I couldn't control. I started taking care of myself, focusing on my own healing, and learning how to live without the support system I had relied on for so long. It wasn't easy. The loneliness was sometimes unbearable. I missed them. I missed the way things used to be, the warmth of our family gatherings, the feeling of being a part of something bigger. But with time, the ache grew less intense, replaced with an understanding that I had to move forward. I couldn't keep clinging to the past. I had to let go. A year passed, a whole year without contact. It felt like a lifetime. I had moved on, I had healed, but a small part of me still longed for some kind of resolution. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know what had gone wrong. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted an apology. That's when the message came. It was from my sister, Emma. "Hey, Taylor, I've been thinking about you. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend like I hadn't seen it, but another part of me, the part that still wanted answers, still wanted to fix what had been broken, couldn't bring myself to delete it. I opened the message. I read it again. Can we talk? I took a deep breath. It was her. The one person in the family who had always been my closest confidant. The one person who had always been there when I needed someone. The one person who had shared so many memories with me. And now, she wanted to talk. She wanted to reconnect. I wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't know if she was reaching out because she missed me or if it was something else entirely. But I couldn't resist. I couldn't let go without knowing the truth. We agreed to meet at a cafe the next day. I showed up, my heart beating fast, unsure of what to expect. Emma was sitting at a table near the window, her back straight, a polite smile on her face. She looked almost the same, though there was something different in her eyes, something guarded. "Hey," I said softly, sitting down across from her. "Hey, Taylor," she replied, her voice tentative. "I've been meaning to reach out for a while. I've been thinking about everything that happened." I nodded, unsure of how to respond. There was so much I wanted to say, but I kept it inside. I was afraid to push too hard, afraid to say the wrong thing and make things worse. "Look, I know things got out of hand," she continued. "And I know I should have done more to help fix things. But, I think we all made mistakes. I want to make things right." Her words made my heart ache. It was what I had wanted to hear for so long. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, they realized how wrong they had been. But then, just as I was about to let my guard down, the tone shifted. Emma's eyes darted nervously to the side, and I could sense the change in her demeanor. "Actually," she said, her voice quieter now, "there's something I need to ask you." My stomach tightened. The change in tone was subtle, but it was there. I could feel it. "I've been going through some financial trouble," she said, her words rushed. "And I don't know who else to turn to. Can you help me out, Taylor? Just this once. I don't know where else to go." It was like a punch to the gut. I stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. I wanted to believe that this was just a coincidence, that she was genuinely in need of help. But a part of me knew better. It wasn't just a conversation about reconnecting, it was about money. Again, I looked at Emma, my sister, her eyes wide, hopeful, and desperate. The words she'd just spoken hung in the air like an unpleasant stench I couldn't ignore. Help her out? Financial trouble? My mind raced. It was as though the truth of what had happened between us and the family was suddenly staring me right in the face again, only this time, it wasn't just an emotional betrayal. It was a clear attempt to take advantage of me. I felt my stomach knot. How could she do this? I had no idea how to respond. My first instinct was to say no, to stand up and walk out of this meeting, to cut ties for good. But then, I thought about everything I'd been through. The year without them, the silence, the rejection, the loneliness. I thought about how much I had sacrificed for my family over the years. The emotional support, the time, the money. And yet, when the chips were down, they hadn't hesitated to cut me off without a second thought. Now, here was Emma, asking for help after all this time. The nerve. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. I wanted to lash out, to tell her that I didn't owe her anything. But there was something inside me, some part of me that still cared for her, still wanted to believe in the family we used to have. I had worked so hard to move on from them, to leave the past behind. And yet, here they were, dragging me back into it. "Emma," I said, my voice steady but filled with the pain I'd been holding in. "Why now? After everything that happened, after how things ended between us, why should I help you?" She blinked, clearly taken aback by my response. I know we messed up, okay? But you're the only one who can help me. I don't know where else to turn. You're the only family I've got left." Her words hit me harder than I'd expected. Family. She still thought of me as family. And yet, her words didn't match the way they'd treated me. The cold silence that followed the argument. The way they shut me out without a second thought. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "You really think I'm just going to forget what happened? That I'm going to pretend like everything's fine? You cut me out of your lives without a second thought, Emma. You all did. And now, what? You think I owe you money?" She flinched at my words, but her desperation was still there. "I'm sorry, Taylor. I don't know how else to say it. I'm in trouble. I can't do this alone." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since I'd walked into the cafe. The girl I once knew, my sister, my closest confidant, was gone. In her place was someone who was using me, manipulating my emotions to get what they wanted. I wanted to scream at her, to demand an apology for the way they'd treated me, for the years of neglect and pain. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up slowly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I can't help you, Emma," I said, my voice firm. "I can't do it, not after everything." She stood up too, looking panicked, as if my refusal was a blow she hadn't prepared for. "Taylor, please, I'm begging you." The desperation in her voice was almost too much to bear. But I had to be strong. I had to remember who I was now. The person who had healed, who had moved on. I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their mess. "I'm sorry, Emma," I said, turning to walk away. "But I'm not that person anymore. I've moved on." I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I had, I might have relented. And I wasn't going to do that. Not again. Over the next few days, I tried to clear my head. I had made my decision, but the guilt gnawed at me. Could I really walk away? Could I really leave them behind for good? I couldn't help but think of the memories, the good times. The holidays spent laughing around the dinner table, the family vacations, the times we all sat together, sharing our dreams and our plans. I remembered the love I had for them, the way I used to feel that everything was possible when we were together. But now, that love felt like a lie. The truth was inescapable. They didn't love me the way I loved them. They didn't care about me, not in the way that families should. And I was tired of pretending like it wasn't true. The day after my meeting with Emma, I received another call. This time, it was my mother. Her voice was shaky, hesitant. "Taylor, I know things have been difficult between us, but I've been thinking. Maybe it's time for us to talk. Maybe we can fix things." I felt a surge of anger. Was this really happening? Was I really going to go through this again? "I don't think there's anything to fix, Mom," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral, though the hurt in my voice was impossible to hide. "You made your choice. You made it very clear what I meant to you. And I can't keep putting myself through this." There was silence on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought she might say something, but she didn't. She simply hung up, and that was the last time I heard from her. After that, the calls stopped coming. The texts, the messages. It was as if they'd all decided that their attempts to manipulate me had failed, and they gave up. And honestly, a small part of me was relieved. Because the truth was, I didn't need them anymore. I had a life now. A life that didn't revolve around the drama and chaos they had brought into it. I spent the next few months focusing on myself, on rebuilding what I had lost. I took up new hobbies. I met new people. I found peace in places I never expected. I started to understand what it truly meant to have a family, not the blood kind, but the kind that chooses you. The kind that supports you, loves you, and treats you with the respect you deserve. It wasn't easy, and I still felt the pang of loss when I thought about the family I used to have. But with every passing day, I grew stronger. I grew more confident in who I was and what I wanted out of life. And then, one evening, I received a message. It wasn't from Emma or my mother. It wasn't from anyone in my blood family. It was from one of the friends I had made in the past year. A simple text that read, "Hey Taylor, just wanted to check in. I'm so proud of you. You've come so far, and I know it hasn't been easy. But you're doing amazing." I smiled as I read it, the words warming my heart. The people I had come to know, the people who had supported me in ways my family never had, were the ones who made me feel whole again. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Family wasn't just about blood. It wasn't about who you were born to or who shared your last name. Family was about love, respect, and trust, things I had never truly received from my own.